meeting verification. Thank you. Robin, could you lead us in the pledge, please?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Jane, Mr. Speaker.
Serve with passion to ignite creativity, innovation, and excellence.
Thank you. Tom and Catherine are excused. Roll call. Ryan, you got it here? Yep, there is. All the administrative team is here. Okay, thank you. I'll take a motion to approve the agenda.
So,
Eric.
No.
Pam, can you see our the two groups? Did you accept them?
Yeah.
Okay.
Here.
so moved.
That's my job.
Damn. Second.
I have a first by Ken, second by Jane. All in favor?
Aye.
Moving on, board reports. Madison and Max.
Yeah, I'd be happy to start. One thing that happened in the last few weeks is our high school link crew leaders got trained for their virtual orientation. They were trained 2 hours each day last week on Thursday and Friday. And the virtual orientation for our incoming freshmen will be a little bit different this year. In the past, it's been held at the building, but this year it will be held virtually this Friday. And the link crew leaders have been briefed on this, and we're really excited to welcome our incoming freshmen as we're all a little figuring things out. We hope we can make it as easy and as comfortable for them as we can. The students are also receiving their technology this Wednesday as we get started for the online classes that are coming. And I believe Maddie has a few more things on there.
And then the last thing is just that the high schoolers recently received their schedule for the first 2 weeks, along with all of their classes and all that. And then that's it.
Okay. Any questions for student rep? Thank you guys, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Correspondence, the only correspondence we have is just a notification for the 2020 Wisconsin Association School Board Fall meeting. Pat, you said we're Region 6, correct? So that date would be an online, if anyone's interested, I have it here, it's October 6th, 7 to 8 p.m. You can take a look at the flyer if anybody is interested. That's the only correspondence I have today. Citizen participation in board meetings, board policy 186. Citizens wishing to address the board, we ask to register prior to the start of public comments section of the board meeting. For guidelines, please see the policy, which is available on the district website. Patrick. No. Okay, thank you. Reports, workforce engagement and development. Jane.
That's on there by mistake, actually.
Okay.
It went over that last week.
District strategic initiatives update. Business operations team. Ryan.
It's any questions from the reports for myself or Sean or any of his team members? I know that when we concluded the last board meeting, somebody asked for comparables for our sub-pay to sub-pay of other districts. We'll have that on the board agenda for us.
Thank you.
Do you know, has there been any movement towards getting better audio for our meetings? That's the feedback I've been getting from everybody, is that it's really muffled to try to hear us.
Well, that's going to be part of not our workforce engagement, but the committee meeting. Business apps. That's part of the business apps meeting that we were going to have, but the time that we were postponing that.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So
So that might have to tell you. I agree. Yep.
My question was for Deanna. It looks, I thought I saw you, but it's been, okay. The CRVA, they're not required to have the laptops now. We can do it with the iPad. Did I read that right?
The younger grades,
Yeah.
they have to have Flash on their computer. So because of that, they were able to go to the iPad.
and then they just had to have keyboards or something like that,
We're
right?
hoping and praying that it works, so.
Okay, thank
We're
you.
processing it through iPads as well.
Any other questions for the line of the team? All right.
Do you need to read that or shrink stuff? You don't have to read the stuff. verbatim. This is some, I can help you with it. Please, thank you. Okay, the summary from the 1920 school year for secluded restraining classes and found in that. If there's any questions, Eric is here, the people service director, to talk about any of that, but that's just an annual thing that we need to put into the board packet. All three principles that set up that no packet, so there's no questions, we move on.
Consent agenda. Minutes of the regular board meeting, invoices to be paid, resignations, retirement, donations.
I'll move to approve.
Second. So I have a motion to approve by Jane, a second by Eric. Is there any discussion?
There was no resignation, right?
No. More retirement.
Right.
Well, there were two resignations of paraprofessionals, but that was on my board as well.
Oh, okay.
Can you read donations?
Yeah.
We had
I got it.
Renee Bradley donated $1,000 to the Steve Jeffers Memorial.
All right, so we had a motion by Jane,
Mhm.
and a second by Eric. Any further discussion? All in favor?
All right.
Opposed? Okay. Discuss, consider, take action if appropriate regarding strategic initiative 2021 school year kickoff.
This is in service week, so it's an exciting week around the district. Last Thursday, we did have our new employee orientation. We had 14 new Panthers here last week, so it's nice to see all the new faces and new teachers that will be working with our students in the upcoming school year. Tomorrow is our whole district kickoff, where all of our staff will be on site. Each building will be holding their individual building staff meetings. And then coming on Wednesday, excuse me, we have tech pick up for our students from 7 a.m. in the morning to 7 p.m. at night.
Can I just say one thing? Sam, I'm sure this is probably you. I really enjoy seeing the picture of a new employee in the outline. I'm not sure if that's on the student webpage. I can't remember where I see it, but I think that's a nice touch. It lets people put a face with the name and then a little bit about their history. So thank you for doing that. Request for middle school teacher long-term substitute for the CRBA. Brian, you want to handle that?
Yeah, this is attachment G in your packet. Through our work with and partnering with Bangor, we were servicing 39 of Bangor students in K through 8. And because of the amount of students we're servicing and with some things at the middle school, and if we want to let Glenn explain some of the stuff further, but we need to use some of our staff to help pick up some of their kids and move some of those things around. So one of our staff members in the 6th grade is going to be a CRBA teacher, so we need to replace her in the classroom at the middle school for this upcoming school year. So we're looking for permission to hire a long-term substitute for the duration of this school year for middle school.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Can you
Second
just,
before
That's
discussion.
a second discussion.
I'll second it. I just have a question.
Okay, so motion's been made by Jane, seconded by Robin. Discussion?
Discussion. So can you just please explain the finances around that, just so we understand that we're educating more Bangor kids, but we're hiring a teacher. So I want people to understand how how that's happening, that we're not ending up paying for 38 extra Bangor kids to be educated.
And that's the purpose, that's what we're going through right now. So Deanna broke down the numbers of the students and how much this per student cost would be going into CRVA. So we've taken that cost and multiplied it out by the number of students they have. So that's giving us a dollar amount that I've been talking with Bangor superintendent about for reimbursement of those students.
Okay.
My question is in the quality of teacher we can possibly bring in. My concern is that we have a good science teacher. Are we going to be able to get as good a science teacher in to teach our kids while we let this other one go for the CRVA program?
And that's a good question, and one I wrestled with. I answered part of it, and the other part, I think I'd have to go to closed session. Which I'd be happy to do. But, one of the reasons is that she's LongTerm certified, so she can teach all of the courses and has experience teaching all of those courses. And 20 out of the 24 students that would be in 6th grade CRD are our students. And then there's another part of that HR specifically.
Okay, but then okay, that's good enough now.
Okay.
So the question is, can we deny this if we can't find a qualified science teacher for our kids?
That would depend on Ryan's dealings with Bangor.
Regardless.
We have a post now, we do have one applicant, we will have, it is covered right now with the short-term stuff, we'll then move on to another stuff, but we do have it posted for us.
Do you understand my concern?
Yes. I do, and I wrestle with it myself.
But your recommendation is to approve the hiring of this.
Yeah. The other part of this too, I would say, is if after a month there are a bunch of kids that decide they don't want CRTA, then the plan that we have in place would allow some flexibility to shift things around.
Have we not asked our kids in the CLA to stay till at least January? Is my understanding?
That is the higher.
That's what we requested.
But that they aren't locked into that necessarily? Not really?
Any other questions? Comment? All right. We have a motion and we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
All with that? Motion passes. Request for medical staff support.
Eric, you want to take this?
Sure, if you look at the memo that I wrote to the board there, the last board meeting, we talked about what we needed as far as support. So we visited that with staff. That what we would like to do is take a look at limited term 1 year RN. And one or two options to do that, so that we have the ability to have someone who is independently assess, make decisions, those kinds of things that one or the other, quarantine, those kinds of things. Also, if end up having to be certain situations that come up, we wouldn't have a whole program be overwhelmed by one nurse, again, that would be contingent on being able to find someone, someone who'd be interested in a 1 year position. So the other option would be to look at that 4-hour CNA position that we currently have posted, adding 3 hours to that, and then having coverage in all 3 buildings. They would be not as obviously a good a solution, but we are in the possibility to do this. And this is some reference in 2009 when we did the H1N1. We had a nurse in all 3 buildings.
we discuss, or do we need a motion on the table before we discuss?
Need a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Prove what?
Approve, I'm sorry, the request to pursue additional health service support. I guess my comment will be how we make the motion. So I'm wondering if you want to open it up to medical assistants besides CNAs. They're very equally trained. Medical assistants are just clinic trained assistants, where CNAs are hospital trained. So I think you'd pretty much get equally as well gifted people that could work here. My other comment is, now that we're talking about using our paraprofessionals, what if we grew our own? What if we put some of our paraprofessionals through our own CNA program to open up the pool of people that we have to work for us? And if we have paraprofessionals that are interested in being CNAs, if we don't fill our CNA program, why don't we grow our own and get them licensed?
That process.
You're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, it's not something that's gonna happen immediate, but I don't think that this is going to go away based on what's happening in healthcare.
Well, and that's the reason I'm looking at this, I'm going to turn for, obviously, we'll revisit this and see how.
It's certainly something to think about as we move forward. But my suggestion would be maybe think about an MA in addition to a CNA. I think you'll get a better pool of candidates.
And I agree with what you said, Robin. And Eric, my question is, there's a huge difference between hiring an RN and extending a CNA 3 hours a day. And so
By far the best choice would be the RN for the reason that, for obvious reasons, as far as having to be able to work independently. An LPN or a CNA has to work in the direction of first. And so if we had that second, just in this unique situation, if we have a second, if this higher goes to CNA or an MA, we would be able to have that person function independently. And, there's just without going through a long list, there's just a number of complicated scenarios that we feel are potentially going to happen.
agree. And I think we need
And it's just
additional
that if
support.
It's not possible. I think.
Oh, and I think you're going to have to, because you're asking financially, you're probably asking the difference between an $80,000 employee, $20,000 maybe with additional hours as they get healthcare or something. I mean, this is a huge difference, and I don't know how the board can approve it the way that it is.
I guess we don't know what we're getting.
Exactly.
If it was a full-time RN that you found, was that a salary job or was it a full-time?
Typically it's
It's a salary job? And what would
in
that
our potential that we would.
What would that be?
Can I clarify what motion was?
Well,
Yeah.
like I'm kind of with Ken, it's difficult because we don't know what we're
That's why I'm
hiring.
asking.
So-
And part of the reason why we left this open was, we've had that LPN position posted
Right.
for 4 hours, and this is searching for something, if we would go forward and post this, then we would take those 4 hours back and use this as, a full-time thing for that. That position's been posted here for a while with not much luck. And, we know that we're, gonna start school here in 3 weeks, and, as Eric said, having a presence in all 3 of our buildings for the full 8 hours is something that I think is gonna be crucial as we go into the school year.
So would be Beth, a new one, and who's the third one?
We have an LPN.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I think it's equally important to have that depth as we move into colder flu season. Because of I think it's equally important to have that depth as we move into cold and flu season, because of what's happening with exclusions and exemptions with having symptoms of a cold or a flu. The number of people that are going to be home for things that they would have come to work for in the past, or they're going to be home for an extended period of time because of the recommendations of being symptom-free for a certain length of time. It's going to create a lot of demand for nursing and healthcare services in the district. And so I think not only is it a good short-term strategy, but absolutely support the decision for the long term.
Well, and
Get us through the school year.
I mean,
I
Beth,
just wanted us to have a fallback position, given what Ryan was saying as far as the ability to help you.
Yeah.
You might be able to look into full-time, find someone to do it. But we moved from an LPN to a CNA because of that. It's a hard position to fill.
So it has to be like a new student out of the school, because most people have a job that they're already doing if they're a nurse, or they're retired for, because of whatever it is. I don't know that people would quit what they're doing.
It could be very likely that we would be looking at the second half.
But I think we need to know what you're looking for. I mean, this is just saying you want to hire somebody for the medical field, and
Well, if we want specifics, and I guess the specifics that I'd be asking for at this point would be for a full-time, you know.
RN. Okay, and that's all.
I think I shouldn't have that.
So can we make it that the motion is approved for full-time RN, but come by a certain date? If we don't have that, you could fill it with CNAs, or?
I think we want to have some flexibility in that.
Right.
If we can't find something, we'll be able to find somebody that's fully capable of handling, you know, the role that we have within our school.
We currently have a CNA position posted.
The original motion was
Yeah,
with
so
regard to this medical support, so then we can.
so I'll withdraw my original motion.
Can we withdraw your second? Yeah. You want to make a second?
I'm trying to decide how to word it. How do I word it to give it flexibility that if an RN doesn't apply, that we can then fill it with CNAs or MAs or whoever we would have in that position? Any suggestions on wording?
What's the typical time that you would leave a job like that posted? You said you had the LPN posted for a while and you haven't got much of a response, if any?
We have that posted. Filled.
Oh, okay.
That allowed us to.
Maybe something along the lines of the motion is that you request to fill the position with an RN, but at a time that does not happen, or something that the administration has flexibility to work with.
Okay, so I'll make a motion that we open in a long-term club position for an RN for the 20 to 21 school year. If at the time we haven't been able to fill it at the discretion of the administration, they can fill it with CNAs or MAs or a other healthcare qualified individual.
And I will second that.
Motion by Robin, second by Jane, discussion.
Yeah, my thought, I think we need medical help, but I think we're reaching too far with for the cost of an RN, we could hire 2 CNAs and have more healthcare professionals here in the building.
But then they have to work right under a nurse.
We already have an RN though, we have that.
The ability for them to operate independently and to have a redundancy is far more crucial. One thought I had too is when you want to close that help you as a long-term
I'm sorry. I said long-term sub, long-term employee.
Limited.
Limited term?
Yeah.
Long-term. For the school year though, is what you want to call it.
You want to read it?
Please.
Okay.
Yes, we got that. My right is for it. From this place for a break, notice for the clear. If an eye doesn't apply, then the flexibility is still like it's the or for other health care, all that. That's like part-time, full-time, whatever it is. Full-time, just step out to do. You know,
7 hours.
And that would provide health staff at all 3 buildings?
So do this, yeah. Cool.
What do you guys want about? I just don't know what the type of position that they're looking for.
Okay. So that would give us 1 person.
All day long
Yes.
at all 3 buildings, which I think we're going to need.
No.
Any other discussion?
Just a question to clarify that, but aren't you saying you have 4 hours there now?
What we would do is,
We posted 4 hours.
we would withdraw the 4 hours if we're hiring a full-time RN.
Okay, because
So
that's
that
not what I just
position-
heard.
The position that's floating there right now that we are not getting anybody to apply for.
Yeah.
We would withdraw that to post for a full-time RN.
So you would not have full-time in all 3 buildings.
We don't right now.
Right, but I just heard Eric say that they were going to.
If we were able to hire this position, then we would have full-time in all 3 buildings.
If we hire a nurse,
RNs and
would we have full-time at all
Yes.
3 buildings?
Yes.
2 RNs and enough.
2 RNs and an LPN,
Yes.
because we currently have an RN and LPN.
Yes, correct.
We have 2 out of 3.
Yeah.
Any other discussion? Ken, you're still shaking your head.
I'm still gonna go no, but
What?
Help us.
I think we're going so far over on this. We need healthcare help, but I think we don't need an RN, another RN on staff
I don't
to
think you
handle this
understand.
issue. And I don't think we're gonna get one. I think what we're gonna do is we're gonna post for this RN, and 3 weeks from now, when we start school, we won't have any more help.
There are many things that a CNA does that they practice under the license of an RN. So if Beth is gone for a period of time, if God forbid she gets sick, we really could use another RN that would then delegate activities to the CNAs and the MAs.
All the time in this case, off of that person's license.
Correct.
I understand.
We're not really complicated.
Well, and we're asking Beth to do all sorts of additional that she's never done that include writing protocols and
And
guidelines.
I'm
around
for all
health.
medical.
So does the nurse then have to be in the building with a CNA to function or not?
They can function on protocols, but,
Because it's their license, so I would think that you have to have a licensed staff for them to
We've
work
been
on
in
it.
a position before where we, for a very short period of time, we can do phone calls to do that, but it's not it. But you're asking too much of that person because you're relying on the license.
So
I think where I'm at is I see it as an incremental cost to get from CNA to nurse and to get the redundancy and the depth. And to be honest, the support for Beth. The amount of work that she's done to get ready for the school year is absolutely amazing. You know, I'm getting emails at 4:30 in the morning on Sunday.
Right.
There's a heavy lift here.
And you do recall to this specific, what do you need?
Yep, and I'm willing to give her additional help. I've got
Exactly
an RN.
what she said.
Yep.
All right, any more discussion? I will just take a vote. All in favor?
I,
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carried. Update for the 2021 co-curricular season.
I will turn this over to Mike as we are both in a meeting again today on this, so Mike, go ahead.
Okay. First of all, thanks for giving us the opportunity to talk a little bit, and I guess it says update, so I'll start out with we are on the tennis and cross country. Most events started last week. And we ultimately need to make some decisions on what we're going to do with the rest of our co-curricular seasons. And I would share that I'm doing that as all activities, not just sports. So making sure that when, I'm talking, I say co-curriculars, I mean all of us. After I get done, Ben's going to talk a little bit. We met last week as an administrative team. Let me back up. Ryan Olson's not here because he's attending a funeral as we have like breakfast, so that's why he's not here tonight. So I'm talking on his behalf as far as it goes to the sports. So Ben, myself, Brian Weaver, and Ryan Olson met last Friday for to talk a little bit about what the future of co-curriculars for our school year looks like. If you've
watched the news, okay, or heard things through whatever our Cooley region. There's lots of variance in what schools are doing. One of the struggles that we're having is based on what set of guidelines you look at. They oftentimes contradict one another. So, for example, we have WIA guidelines. We have what I guess is no longer but the old Compass guidelines. We have recommendations across county. Some of those things contradict one another. Ultimately, we think we have a pretty solid understanding and feel quite comfortable that we would be able to run the events and feel reasonably safe that we can function in a safe manner. Where it gets to be a little bit confusing is when we get into the piece of competitions and spectators because of guidelines. So, for example, most of the guidelines, so the WI guidelines basically say follow county guidelines, and we don't have any county guidelines, I guess, at this point. The county guidelines that we used to have basically say inside no more than 50 if we're in the yellow, which I would say that if we follow the old guidelines, that's where we're currently at. Outside no more than 100, wear masks, all those types of things. We met again today as a conference, so that was all the superintendents of the food conference, building principals, and athletic directors. Ultimately, where that conversation landed is the recommendation from the food conference is that we think we should start out slow, recognizing that this is something that we would hope to be able to get kids to finish. People are very concerned that if we bring too many people back into buildings too soon, we may end up having to get rid of them altogether. Co-curriculars, that is. One of the things that was brought up very adamantly by many districts was we are refusing to allow visitors into our school during the school day. So if we're not allowing visitors past the main office, why would we allow visitors past the main office starting at 3:30? The conference recommendation from the Cooley conference would be basically that we would start out slow, and the conference's guidelines and recommendations are that we would continue to move forward with the sports school districts feel comfortable with, and it varies by school. If you are having events that are taking place inside, their recommendation is that we do not allow spectators other than the athletes, coaches, and game personnel required. If we get to outside, we will allow people as long as we can maintain social distancing and wearing a mask. So I guess at that point, I will entertain questions unless you want to first round and then we get questions together. Or I can go on. Yeah.
Well, obviously, middle school, we're looking to fit underneath the high school umbrella. That comes to co-curricular. Our goal is to just get any experiences at the middle school level. And so Ryan Olson and I talked. We talked about an intramural type season where we have practices, plenty of scrimmages, and then take a look because high school all over the place, well, middle schools are really all over the place. Some of them are just in spring, some of them are canceling, and so to find maybe 2 schools that line up with the timeline and philosophy of what we're doing, and then maybe play a home and home with, so maybe a total of 4 culminating events with 2 schools, something like that, just to get the kids an experience and the co-curricular. So that's kind of what we're looking at the level, fitting underneath the umbrella of all.
So when you say you talk about starting slow, so would you just have a few activities to start out with, and then as the year progresses, add more in, or how do you mean by that?
I think the starting slow on this summer I couldn't hear
You said you talk about starting slow, the
That was a
recommendation to start
concept.
slow. So just like one activity and then see how it goes, add more as time.
Great question. I didn't explain it as well as I probably should have. The conference should just start slow on the amount of spectators.
Oh, okay.
So we would do the events and let kids participate and do the stuff, but start out slow, meaning like we don't just all of a sudden ignore the library from the launch. So we might want to start slowly, allow things based on how things go. And the other thing is we talked, in theory, some schools are going to be back in session earlier than others. And we have a little bit of time because some of these things aren't going to actually get up and start until the 7th of October.
and then they gotta put in a couple of weeks before the competition, so you might know more a couple of weeks from now, we might not need to, make a firm decision tonight, but.
So all regular extracurricular activities would go on time. Just with limiting spectators.
Well, the WIA, so sports, they've already changed all the start dates. They pushed back volleyball, football, soccer. Those activities would normally be starting next week or this week. They pushed all of those back so they can't even start until September 7th. They've also put out an opportunity if people wanted to move their sports seasons to the spring, they could do so. There's a little bit of a caveat with that. If we move things, they're gonna overlap a lot more when you talk to the coaching staff, the administrative staff. So, for example, in the spring, it's possible that basketball, boys soccer, or football, baseball, all could actually all overlap at the same time in some shape or form. And we're really not letting the kids in that spot. Or we have staff members who coach multiple sports as well. So we're leaning towards right now, we'd like to start suggesting that we start up now. The WIA also gave the caveat that if you don't compete in at least half of your contests, you could then still move to the spring. So we could, in theory, let's just pick volleyball. We get up and going and something happens, so we aren't able to finish half of the season, we could still move to the spring if we so chose. So this idea really gives us a safety net that we would have two options in the long run if we wanted to.
Again, that's your answer to that September 1st question that you asked last
Right.
week.
The September 1st, they would they're just asking if people who already know for sure, ultimately, so people can call around and figure out who you're going to play. So for example, I'll just use the sport of football because it's the one that's been the most recent. So Central and Logan have decided they're not playing any fall sports, they're out. Pullman out of Alaska have decided, well, they're meeting tonight, but have the same conversation. But as of today, they're still in. Toma and Sparta are still in. The Cooley Conference, Baroka, Westby, Alaska Luther, and kind of talking old Cooley. Aquinas are playing. Baroka, Arcadia, Blackbird Falls are not. So it's kind of a blend that everybody's doing all kinds of stuff. So I kind of have shared the analogy that in theory, everybody's an independent, there really aren't any conferences, and we would just need to call around the best we can.
Meaning we call anybody we want.
Correct. We would start conversations with our conferences and try to meet those alliances, but if it doesn't work out, then we could Blair Taylor, whatever.
Okay, so that has to do with all the sports. So what about show choirs and different things like that?
So I would guess I would recommend the same exact thing, that we follow social distancing protocols, whatever the guidelines are of those things. Amy and I have been in conversation multiple times already. She sent me emails. Obviously, she's been creative in trying to figure out ways that we can do that, whether she's suggesting we start outside because it allows less restrictions if we did some things outside. Those people are extremely creative. We put together and pulled off a summer musical this summer with wearing a mask and microphones and all that. So I guess my thought would be is if we're going to have kids back in the building and doing school and doing sports, then we should also be doing that.
That was I agree.
Can I get one point of clarification first? When they said the slow start, no spectators, not even parents?
Yeah. This was a 2-hour conversation, and that's where it landed, yes. We went back and forth, round and round, lots and lots of times. That's what the conference recommendation was today.
And then I'll talk about live stream options during this time. So we will live stream sport event.
We should sell cardboard cutouts.
So the question is, do you have to abide by that? No spectators? And my thought is, I'd love the parents to be there, but if we have the kids in school, why can't we have them at the volleyball game at night?
Okay, so I'm just going to give you my 2 cents on this again. I think all of the things that we look at are called guidelines or recommendations, and school boards get to decide.
Okay.
And whatever you guys decide, I will come up with a plan to make it happen. So to answer your question, could we do that? The answer is yes.
And what is the expectation? So I'll just take Baroka. So we play Baroka in volleyball. They won't let anybody in, so our parents would know ahead of time they can't go down there. But when they come up here, we probably wouldn't let their parents in, and I think that's an okay rule. You're not letting the outsiders in, but to let your own in, I think that's really home field advantage now. So.
They talked about that today, making sure that, those home rules get shared out.
Okay.
One of the things that was talked about is we realized that all the different schools have unique individual school boards and local control. And ultimately, we would need to be respectful of the host school and abide by whatever their boards decide.
Okay. But we don't need to decide that tonight. Do we have when is our first tennis or cross country?
That we would need to decide. We played tennis later this week already. Yeah.
So we should probably have some guidelines. You have recommendations for the outside sports?
My recommendations would be we allow people to come, and with the exception of football, I don't think we have large crowd type venues. I think we have people who come, and cross country lends itself to space themselves out because you find spot anywhere between 3.1 mile for us to watch. Tennis is a pretty big event, and I think if we require masks and we safely social distance, I'm not sure we need to have a concrete number on it for those activities. I would just be shocked if we went over the 100 spectators or whatever.
I've been to cross country meets and seen a lot of people pretty tight.
Yeah.
But
I think if it's very well known that there's social distancing requirements and masks, the WI guidelines state that they recommend masks for all activities.
So is it our job then to police that if we allow that? So if we allow spectators, is it our job to then walk around and say, you need to socially distance better, or?
I would guess so.
Okay, so.
Well, our event workers will do this.
Okay.
Country need a home meet.
I don't think it's our meeting, it's somebody else would be able to go.
For which sport?
Cross country on Saturday, is that
I
right?
don't know the answer.
I believe it's somebody
I'll look
else's
at it.
meeting.
So they would be communicating what their expectations for masking and social distance for that event.
Just for discussion, I did see it might have been on YouTube, that there was an athletic director that stopped the event and said, part of the deal is so these athletes can compete, that you agree you would be socially distanced, and you're not, and we're not playing until you comply. So in answer to your question, I would think, yes, that's part of our job.
I guess personally, I think we're an academic institution before we're an athletic facility. And getting these kids back to school is first and foremost, and that's what we're all working towards. If that means that we don't get to have parents watching games, my kid plays volleyball. I would love nothing more than to watch her, but I'd rather have her in school than watch her volleyball games. And if it means we can keep them in school longer by not being able to have spectators, then I'm fully going to watch online.
And I agree, because I think we have to have the extracurricular activities, not only sports, but all extracurricular activities, because that, for a lot of these kids, that's the only reason they're coming. And so I think we have to have that for them one way or another. But I think we can be responsible, and I would love to bring in the spectators, because I think that's a lot part of the game. So,
So when they make the recommendation, go slow. Again, you're probably gonna say you can do it really more, you can do what you want. But then
Just better understand.
yeah, as far as, okay, we start slow with the recommendation, and
One of the things they mentioned that they're very concerned about is the athletic directors who do this more often than I do, is that we just open the whole thing up. And 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 5 weeks from now, we gotta shut it completely down. We might not ever get to even do the activity. So, if you start thinking about, are we gonna get to do winter sports and winter activities? If we open this all full-fledged too fast, too soon, we might be also eliminating the activity altogether, not just letting you watch it.
but you can also assure me that Robin can watch her daughter on some way volleyball will live stream it. If we say that there's no fans, then the next part is to put that on us to make sure that those things can happen.
Well, and I think I agree with Rob in that. I think it is more important to have the kids in school versus spectators at any given activity. We'd have to look at adding costs as well, because you can't have, what do you usually have for an event? Mike, for an event police or whatever you call them?
I'm sorry,
How many people do you generally have for events? What do you call
for workers,
it? Yeah,
it varies by event. Typically, a volleyball game, we all have 2 people selling tickets, 1 at each door, between 4 and 6.
so now we're
The
adding
football
to
game will
making
have-
sure that they're, you know, all these people are following these rules. I think we're gonna need more people there to make sure that that's happening.
Well, yeah, but if we follow the recommendation, we won't need anybody volleyball, because it'll only be the team.
Right.
But outside of the cross-country meet, you're right, then normally I think we only have 1 or 2, because those, like that event in particular, we don't charge admission to, so we don't need as many workers, but we might need more supervisors now, you're right. So we would have to staff that a little bit more, and, you know, typically we only host a couple of cross-country meets, so it's not like we have lots of them, and same thing with tennis.
So I feel like cross-country, you need volleyball, you would close down the gym and not let people in. How, explain to me what the plan would be for football.
We didn't talk about football today because we know that that's down the
That's-
road. So
okay.
with everything coming up as far as, you know, whether or not it's, you know, we do have a handful of schools that are planning on starting, but we also do know that there's another, we're planning on having another Cooley conference meeting after there's a decision at our board as far as are we gonna allow activities to go forward with activities from there.
So are you talking like just the flat out participation piece of it, or?
No, I'm talking about fan management. Like, how are we going to, you know, manage how many people we have in our stands, or?
Well, again, we'd have to come up with what is that number, what is the plan. I've done a little bit of calculating, and if we take the size of our bleachers and figure out the square footage, I have that already figured out. We can seat basically 190 people in our bleachers if everyone is like solo and out there with their husband and wife where they can sit next to each other. But we would in theory have 190 different pods of, and use that term if we want to call it, within our bleachers. We obviously would be able to stand along the fence and spread out up on the, around the middle school side, so, I mean. I don't, how we would control all that, if we have people come up from the outside, would be a whole other story. I don't know, other than tell people, you know what, you've got to buy better, you want to ask for the lead, I mean, that's our event, that's what we have to do.
And then divide out tickets between.
That was one of the things that Dairyland Conference is doing. They decided that they are actually going to allow people into their events, and they were going to give each athlete 4 tickets. So that might be an option.
Well, were they gonna allow visitors?
The Dairyland is, yes.
Okay.
Not visitors, you mean.
The
people
visiting
from-
team could bring their
They didn't get into
their
that part.
spectators. So I think that's probably the biggest risk.
Yeah, they didn't get into that part. They just said that they were going to provide 4 tickets per family for, so basically mom and dad and brothers and sisters can come
Right,
watch.
yeah.
But they didn't get into, is the visiting team also going to get 4 tickets? They didn't get into that because they're not part of the campus. But they're going to use just for that. Any motions out there?
So-
You need something as far as a
Do we need-
motion, or?
I guess we would need something if we're gonna have a tennis match before the next board meeting, which I think we have.
I'll move that we allow fans for our outside activities, recognizing social distancing and wearing the mask. So let me take this down and say. I'll move that we allow fans for our outside activities and asking people to honor social distancing and wear masks.
What about indoor?
We don't have to worry about that till the next meeting. So I think we'll have more
The next
information
meeting,
by
I think,
then.
is the 14th, right? So volleyball doesn't even start until the 7th, so we would not play before that, for that night.
Okay, so I have a motion on the table. I have a second here. Discussion.
Just have a question. Are there any band concerts or choir concerts or any other gatherings that would be indoor for non-athletic extracurriculars between now and the 14th? You guys are aware? Okay.
Any other discussion?
Can I ask a clarifying question? Is that, does that motion that I just talked about spectators, am I fair to assume that we can begin all co-curriculars as like practice participation agreement while providing the following the recommendations?
Yeah.
So the motion is just about plan, but I want to make sure we're okay with getting started with that.
And then my question is, as I generally laid that out, is that acceptable to you in terms
It's acceptable, but I would like us to see them have a better experience personally. But if that's the best that you, more games, yeah, more events. But if that's the best you can do, that's better than nothing. But
So is that, when we talk about maybe two, is that, but everyone feel comfortable with that, if it was like 2 to 4, would that be?
Yes.
That's acceptable, just as like, because as we look for options, and people are just looking for the fences. And
right.
that you-
I think the unique thing with the middle school is if I'm going to take volleyball and my daughter and your daughter, they usually have 4 teams or something like that. So you might do the same school, but team 1 plays team 3, and then so that they all get, so they're not playing a half a game, and that's their whole season.
Yeah.
So.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion unanimous, passed. Resolution. Whereas the following school districts have handicapped children, and whereas it appears that the educational interests of all children in these school districts will be served best by the districts joining together to offer special services as authorized by the Department of Public Instruction to meet the needs of handicapped children. Be it, and it is hereby resolved that the school boards of the West Salem School District and the Bangor School District and the West Salem School District and the School District of Holman agree to establish and maintain on a cooperative basis a handicapped children's special education programs pursuant to section 66.0301 of the Wisconsin statute. Brian, you know that?
This is a normal, Eric, and you can chime in here. It's a normal agreement we have with us in our special education students.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
So I have a motion from Ken and a second from Jane. Any discussion?
Yes, Eric, I looked at the financial breakdown you have for the early childhood here.
Sure.
And my question would be is, do we truly want to, you're using the optional cash for the insurance cost just because of the person. Should we look at our average cost of insurance per person? Because what I see here is a person who is taking the cash option, which is $3,500, when if that person goes on our insurance, it could cost us $20,000. So I'm thinking that we may want to redo that part of it. Go ahead, John.
This is an estimate at this point in time. It is what we did Bangor. We threw everything up in April. So if this person does function in the insurance level,
Right.
Bangor is covering the actual cost.
There's an understanding that we're starting out with the cost at this point, but if that would increase, we historically, we always are adjusting that.
But my thought is, to be fair to both parties, would we want to use the average insurance cost? Because next year, we could say instead of using this teacher we have, we're going to give them one that has full insurance that costs them $16,500 more. So that's why I'm thinking you need to think of how you price this out. Just because we chose one that takes the cash option versus one that takes health insurance. Next year, we could choose everybody who takes the health insurance and make their costs go up by $50,000 or $60,000.
Yeah, we usually hear it.
It's supposed to be very specific about what the actual cost is. We can make it as less. We're not supposed to necessarily outside of say retail cost average.
Yeah, I'm just saying it looks kind of, they're getting a bargain this year, but next year they may not get a bargain just because that healthcare is really gonna skew these numbers.
Well, it can, I mean,
Yeah.
originally at the beginning, this is what the person has chosen by September 1. If by April, that is changed for that individual for full-time health insurance, we will bill Bangor. as
Okay.
full-time.
Well, then the question is, how do we assign the teacher? So let's assign the teacher who has the 20,000.
There's only one teacher per each program, so there's not an option to
Okay.
choose, so some other than that, just like some
Okay.
years are different.
Okay, that's fine. It just,
Depends on these programs that.
No, I understand exactly what you're saying because of that change.
right.
Yeah, but we don't have a whole crew for each, you know, for each section, like you said.
Okay.
Right,
It's
that's
not multiple teachers.
Right.
These particular programs are pretty.
right.
Well,
Is the question reciprocated the same way? Do they have a limited group of teachers that they're pulling from? Or are we all?
We always provide the teacher. Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Opposed? Unanimous, that. Instead of action, and go to this. We gave the athletic co-curricular update tonight. Looking ahead, we'll have an update for fees for group using facilities during COVID on the 28th. That's the last one in September. We'll also have an update after we get started for school food trips, field trips and co-curriculars at that 28th meeting as well. And some items that I added to it from tonight's meeting. The substitute teacher rate, there'll be an update on that on the next one. I'll provide an update on our registered nurse search, and then also talk about the attendance for indoor activities.
Can I ask an update? I know we had a recommendation at the last board meeting to petition the collaborative to try to get teachers into the tier 1 level of testing. Is somebody on your team reaching out to the collaborative to see if we could get our teachers classified as tier 1?
Well, I don't know about getting classified to tier 1. I do know that Dr. Engel from the class has reached out and he's meeting with somebody that does some private testing. So in order to look at if that would help expedite the process for providing our teachers testing, what that cost would be, and if that cost would be less than having a 10-day sub or something like that. So
Okay, sure. I just know Dr. Rose mentioned that it can be as simple as just making the ask, so I wanted to make sure we were making the ask.
Hopefully get something to the I think we should probably have a conversation about co-curricular fees for kids. This school year, the limited number of events, whether we want to do it as normal.
Okay.
Whether we want to make sure the season's done and judge the beginning, so it's already, but we'll get those questions.
Ryan, there's 2 items on here that are marked summer of 2020. Do you know if we're gonna see those soon? On the status?
we'll get to those. I'll work with those people who are coming up this week.
Thank you.
Anything else? Good. Good.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion, second by Jane. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned.
Under now.